live from Gallifrey.
Yes,
right?
we are live from Gallifrey.
That's right, and we are here to talk to you about Retro Who. Talk about it with you.
And this is our last episode of 2018.
Yes, so it's kind of fitting for our last episode. We talk about a first episode.
Yeah.
Because it's all wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. Actually, even though it's his first episode, it's not really his first adventure.
And this isn't even really the first episode we're talking about. We're just talking about the reboot. So we're talking about Eccleston and the kind of what happened after the 1996 movie. And a few years later, we finally got the okay to make more Doctor Who episodes. And that's what we'll be starting.
That's right. So 96 to 2005. That is such a gap. But BBC does what they do. And thank God they did it. So this way we can actually be able to talk about Who now.
Yeah. And to everybody in the chat, what's up?
Hey, how you guys doing? Go ahead and kind of tell us hello so we know you're there. We don't need to know ASL, but just say hello. Just say hello.
My goodness, back in the day, stop dating yourself.
Well, hey, we just talked about a 90s episode of Power Rangers where they were trying, this is how cool and tech savvy we are. Oh my God, here goes somebody hacking. So, now we're talking about this.
Yeah, and then for those of you that are too young to know, ASL was age, sex, and location.
That's right, and no one does that anymore. Please
no one
don't.
does that. There are no more chat rooms, I don't think. Are there? I don't know.
They kind of are. There still are. There are there forums. Reddit,
okay, forum.
Reddit counts as kind of one.
That's true.
And then Instagram, people like go back and forth for hours.
But yeah, and then also let us know because we will be waiting for the New Year's episode of Doctor Who since we didn't get a Christmas special, and we will be doing an episode on that. Not on New Year's Day, but, following week after. And let us know if you have any resolutions for the new year. I mean, I'm super excited.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, yeah.
And I'm pretty sure the episode might be called New Resolutions. So if you have any, go ahead and share them with us. We'd love to know if there's any goals for you, and we'll check in on you every week.
Yeah, definitely. We'll check in, see exactly what's going on. But now we want to be able to discuss this episode with Eccleston.
And it's called Rose. And for those of you that don't know, I am not a big fan of Rose. I do not really like her. So if you are a huge fan of Rose, try to convince me otherwise and let me know why you like her, because I don't, and it's unfortunate, and I hate that girl-on-girl hate, but, I
want that meme of you, like, I would just want to put your head on that person's body, sitting there on that table, and it says, I don't like Rose, convince me of otherwise.
Oh, yeah, convince me,
That's it. It just says, I don't like Rose, convince me of otherwise. Like, I just want to see her sitting there with that. That would be great. Maybe that will be the last image we walk away with from 2018, from this episode. That would be great. No, but, honestly, when it comes to Rose, I'm not a fan either.
Mr. Morrow,
I guess there was a moment that I liked her.
Yes, and if you ever want to get to that, we'll probably get to that.
We'll get to it.
Was it the 50th anniversary episode? Yeah, that the moment comes back, and we will get to see her, and I do like that form of Rose.
Yes.
But this introduction is really interesting to me on what target audience they're trying to get, because obviously there's a lot of fans of Doctor Who from the olden days that will just watch it because, it's not necessarily a reboot, but a continuation on, which is super interesting. I feel like it's very similar to Star Wars, where you had the original trilogy, you wait a long time, and the prequels came out, we wait a longer time, and now we have
that's true,
post-quills. I don't know if that's what they're called, but it's kind of like Doctor Who. It has a really strong fan base. Try to jump start it in the middle, didn't quite work, and a bunch of people jumped into this, absolutely loved it. I know Rose is a favorite companion of a lot of Whovians.
So, with that being the case, I mean, a lot of people can be sensitive when it comes to Rose.
Yes.
But there are Rose bashers. There are a lot of people that, will just poop on her. I'm not here to do that. I may say that I may not like her, or I may not like some actions that she does, but doesn't mean that I just hate the character all out. But, yeah, that is a question of why. Why do I not like Rose? For me, it's...
And we're going to jump into that. So, the episode starts off very interesting. We get to see a little bit of her life. We see that she works in a department store, which is great. She gets up, she goes, she lives with her mom, Jackie. And, she has a boyfriend, Mickey, which we find out. And they seem to have a really good relationship on her lunch hour. They make out a little bit, eat some lunch, be by the fountain. And it's romantic. And it does give me the first impression of Rose. I quite like her. I feel like immediately she's an everyday girl. She has a job. She's not a layabout. She's not super rich. She's just an average girl. It could be anybody. Yeah. And I like that about her.
Yeah.
But along the lines, it's a little bit...
My thing is, okay, so Mickey, what was her relationship with Mickey fully? Like, was she in a relationship?
Girlfriend, boyfriend. It says my boyfriend, Mickey.
Because, I don't know.
but so eager to grab the doctor's hands and to kind of jump in on him. And she seems a little frivolous with her relationship with Mickey. And I feel like a lot of that could come from her mother, Jackie. And I don't want to change the conversation too much because we will come back to Rose. You believe me. But we need to talk about Rose's mother, Jackie, for just a quick second.
If you want to talk about a person, sometimes you have to look at the origin and find out where the problem may lie.
The apple sometimes doesn't fall too far from the tree. Not always, but in this particular case, we see Jackie, who is, a loving mother and does care about her daughter and everything else. But as soon as the doctor walks in, Jackie doesn't know that this is a doctor. It's just some man that, Rose invited into her home.
Exactly.
And already she's like, I am in my nightie. And I'm like, ooh!
Oh, God!
What are you doing?
I was like, you don't know the connection. You don't know if he's been, like you just said, with your daughter in any way or anything.
And it's something that has to do with the accident where your daughter could have almost died. And, you're not even questioning, like, how much information do you know? Like, what happened? What started it?
Well, she says he's here for, like, some level of inquiry on that.
Yes,
so I guess that kind of means that, well, then the relationship between him and your daughter isn't there.
But you just don't know. And for someone to come into your home and to immediately make advances on that person, it is awkward and uncomfortable. And you can fight me on this, but I don't think that's an appropriate way for anybody to act, whether it was her mother or a housemate or anything else. It was cringeworthy, and I feel like that gives you a little insight into how I feel about Rose.
Just a little. And also, I'm going to say shout out to Mr. Mero, because it's 4 a.m. in Germany.
Ooh.
But I try to keep up.
Thank you so much.
Good training for me understanding your super language. I think he mistyped stupid, but he put in super. It's fine. It's fine. Trust me. I think you meant stupid because I think it is. Our language
are
is
borrowed from too many other languages,
yes!
and nothing makes sense, and all the rules have exceptions. So
it's so much. It's so much. So I understand. Yeah, it's tough work, and good on you. Thank you for sticking with us. Like Jezzer says,
I also like those emojis.
Yeah, I do. It's kind of like, yeah, keep it up. But no, okay. So yes. Who in their right mind immediately hits on a stranger like that?
And the way she's touching herself, it's very uncomfortable to me.
Oh, it is. It's hypersexualized, and it's kind of interesting because you're like right there at the moment, like you said. Consider the room, I guess. And also, where was Russell T Davies? Did he say, hey, we're going for adults or we're going for kids? Or?
Yeah, because my impression is Doctor Who has always been like a very fun kind of family show, like Twilight Zone is what I could easily compare it to in the States of, kind of this episodic. Well, maybe not even that. That's more like Black Mirror, but.
Oh, he said, no, it's super easy.
Oh. Well, then by all means.
Okay, well, fine. I guess once we said.
Maybe once in a while you could teach us a little bit of German. Not the naughty things, but like useful things.
Yes, like once again, Umschlagbeheter. That means file folder, guys.
It does.
That's
and
right.
That is super useful.
I'm an international man of mystery, guys. Umschlagbeheter.
But yeah, and we kind of see filing this way, but like Rose and her relationship with Mickey, and they are a couple, and it does seem like they support each other, but at the same time, she's also incredibly dismissive of him. Like, when the explosion happens, and he's like, I've been trying to call your cell. Why don't you pick up? Why aren't you talking to me? I see it all over the news, and I am concerned about you. She's like, I'm alive, aren't I? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, stop bothering me. I want to have some tea.
I do not like her all during this moment. I really was... She's a mean girl.
But then Mickey, too, where she already knew, it's like, hey... Because Mickey's like, hey, let's go get a stronger drink. You need more than tea. And she's like, you just want to go watch sports team. I don't know what she said, but some kind of sports match.
You want to watch the match. And he's like, no, I mean...
But he did. And I was like, this is not a great relationship where, like, your girlfriend almost died and you couldn't contact her for X amount of time and you were concerned that you go over to her house to check on her, but you still want to see the sports match. And I don't find this to be a very loving... great relationship, and I don't know what they're trying to do with this sort of writing.
Definitely. It's like, I have no idea, but at that time, they are doing, actually, I do. What they are doing is setting up exactly how they are going to be able to continue with the show. Because later, I mean, we get Captain Jack, and that's he's highly sexualized as
Which
a character.
I think is fine,
and then but it keeps going even more and more. And why is it fine? Well, ooh, girl, why is it fine for him and not okay for the mother? Mm-hmm.
And we will explore this down the line because it will come up a lot.
No, because that's a question a lot of people do ask. Why is it at that time it was fine? And the reason is because this is our first introduction to the show.
It is.
And it's kind of a juxtaposition where you're like, what I remember Doctor Who was, it was for kids and blah, 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 black and white. It was essentially just an educational show. That's what we got. We got some stuff about time, and then a little problem would happen. And then, of course, it evolved into more of a show. But still, we did get these kind of things where you're like, okay, it still works well with children. And then, boom, here she shows up, and it's just, well, that's kind of like, it goes with the sign of the times. Even with, like, our TV shows at that time, around 2005, we had cartoons where almost every woman was form-fitting and blah, blah, yada, yada, et cetera, versus the guys who were also slightly kind of muscle-bound. And you're like, this is a kid's show. So it just works that way.
And as you're saying, like, we're kind of going on, and I think it is a sign of the times. And if you're wondering, we're in Manhattan Beach in California, and it is 7:14 right now. But it's interesting that I thought the first introduction of the Doctor that we see with Rose after these mannequins come and attack her, they hold hands and tells her to run. And this will come up multiple times in the episodes where they will grab hands and hold hands and go on these adventures together. And it does create this kind of expectations that they might have a relationship in the future. And if you watch in future seasons, this actually does come into play, which I think is a little bit odd. And I don't know if I'm necessarily 100% comfortable with it, because the Doctor does change his face, changes his personality, and he is also not really the most reliable person in the universe.
Very true. Because
he is a madman in a box.
Well, yeah, and the only reason they say he's a madman in a box is because sometimes his ideas or his measures may not be what everyone else thinks, but yet they still get the same results, which is what we're looking for. Okay, everyone has to be saved, everyone blah, blah, save the day. Ultimately, that is what happens. It's the way about in which he does it. That makes sense.
Yes, and in this, like, okay, so we have, Jodie Whittaker as our most current Doctor, and I absolutely adore her. So going back to these older episodes, it's incredibly interesting to see how the Doctor views Earth and humanity. And we were talking about this earlier, about how he thinks humans are stupid and that they're not fully evolved yet, and he calls them apes.
He calls them apes. And that was something that was so interesting, because right there it kind of lets you know he's on that high Gallifreyan kind of stuff right now, where he's just like, oh, he's fresh from the Time War.
Yes.
And that's something also we got to remember. And he mentions it, and we do get a little bit of it there. We also get, oh my God, Shadow Proclamation. We get so much stuff in this episode. And it's great.
And things that do come into play. And, like, you don't need to know what these things are. Like, I didn't when I jumped into this. So if you're going to start Doctor Who, I would actually either suggest starting with Matt Smith or Jodie Whittaker. But if you want to start at the reboot here and kind of, not the reboot, but the continuation. Hey, we got a super chat. Ryan Earl Thomas.
Oh, hey.
Hey, show you guys some love with a super chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. We definitely do. We love it.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, exactly. But with that, I get that we have a Doctor that definitely changes. And with that, her connection as far as the love interest part can be kind of weird, because the Doctor was at one time understood to be asexual.
Which I think is fine, but with the 1996 movie, we realize that he does engage in some relationships, and I think it is fine to change and to evolve and do all this, but I don't feel like this is necessarily organic, and I don't like the fact that Rose was in a committed relationship with Mickey and easily dismissed him by the end of the episode. Like, we see them very
at the very beginning,
and they kiss a lot. Like, every time they leave, it's like, hey, remember, like, give me a kiss goodbye, you know, like, pretty much, and I love you. And at the moment this Doctor comes, is like, hey, do you want to come join me? She was like, no, I gotta take care of this sad sap Mickey. But he's like, do you know we also get to travel through time? And she was like, also, yo, peace out, Mickey.
But also, that's kind of my thing also, but it's on both sides. Because it's like, well, it's on everybody. Mickey was just straight up punk, sitting there holding on to her while she's saying, oh, essentially, I'm leaving this guy right now. And Mickey's, oh, don't go with him. He's an alien. It's one of them things. And he goes,
right?
whoa. All right, let's unpack here, Mickey. Last time I checked, you should not be one of anyone that should be able to, be like, oh, he's a horrible, blah, blah. He saved you. Yes, but he just saved you. You should not be someone that kind of refers to him as anything else, but like in reverence. And
like
then, treat him like Mickey, you got a problem already. I hate that. And then, you're also slightly a bigot by calling him a thing because he's an alien. And then after that, here comes the doctor with his situation of, I know that they're together, and watch me go ahead and drive a wedge right in between and say, come on with me, let's go. And the conversation that he's having, he knows it too, because in the way she addresses her answers, it's kind of like, if I'm leaving, it feels like I'm leaving him forever. I am gone. That's how she understood it to be. And he was like, okay, well, I gave you one try. Then he opens up. Did I mention it's also a time machine? Come back whenever you want. So let's leave him.
It was a little mean, too, that, like, Mickey is standing there and he was like, you're not invited.
No.
I feel like,
dude.
That is not the doctor that I know today. And it's been a long time. I've never gone back and rewatched any of these episodes. Right. So it is a little bit jarring. And I do remember this watching it initially, too. I still had very similar feelings. Not a lot has changed.
True.
But just seeing how far we've come makes me appreciate the development of Doctor Who.
Yes.
And the production value itself. Like, I remember this episode because of the mannequins. They are incredibly creepy. I think they did a really good job with this kind of antagonist and a really good introduction to this. But, man. Oh, yes.
I was making sure not to go there.
We're not going to read that one, but yes, we kind of agree with you, Edward Sanchez.
Edward, yeah, definitely. But no, you're right. Like, man, so much has changed on this episode.
Yeah.
As far as, like, you look back at Doctor Who, from this episode on to everything else, you definitely have a bigger appreciation for the show.
Yeah, because we talked about the companion Rose and how, like, the companions do change over time. I do feel like Rose is one of the weaker characters where, like, her sense of maybe ethics and morality doesn't seem to be very strong with her yet, but she also seems very young. Like, when you look at her room, it's pink, it's cluttered, it looks like almost like a high schooler's room, but, she has a job, she's not in school, so she's obviously older than 18.
Definitely.
She's done, with her schooling pretty much. And I want to ask you this. How old do you think Rose is?
I don't know, because the thing is, the way Rose reacts and the way she is with Mickey and everything like that, sometimes it kind of feels like, okay, she may be a little bit older, out of high school.
Yeah, like it kind of takes care of him and has a job.
She's out of high school and she should be going to college, but I don't have that much money. Forget it, I'm not going to go to university. I'm just going to live. And
but
it's
her
like
room
that's
is
what it feels
so
like.
Messy, and I don't know.
But it feels more like almost she's her mom's roommate, which we do get that idea when her mom says, I'm not paying your half, or blah, blah, blah. So now she's her mom's roommate. That actually brings her up as far as the age for me. So now I'm looking at her like, yo, it's post-college. I mean, it's post-high school. Could be in college, but chooses not to be. And then you see Mick, and with Mick, he just seems to bring her down in age because he doesn't seem up there. In just so many ways he doesn't. So they're just two, I don't know, weird millennials. That's it.
I agree with that.
They're in that millennial phase where I'm like, I don't know how they are, but clearly Mick should not be on his own.
Obviously he can't. I feel like even Rose just seems kind of indifferent to a lot of things, to her mother's concerns, to Mickey's concerns. She's a little more self-centered and wants to get to the core of, like, this doctor and this mystery.
She's a mean girl, and all she was thinking about, honestly, I was wondering if she was just very promiscuous. Because it feels like, okay, her and Mick, as a couple, blah, blah. And I mean, as far as relationship-wise, I don't mean, like, as far as intercourse. I mean, like, as far as relationships, she can just jump from person to person and be like, oh, now you're my boyfriend. Oh, now you're my boyfriend.
And that's what it feels like.
Because she was ready to leave from him and jump and hook her star onto the doctor. That was it. Met him once. Run. That's it. That's all I need. I'm definitely into that guy. I'm flattered by that guy. Everyone else is nothing.
Well, I don't want to defend Rose or anything, but if I was in her position and you've met this intriguing alien who can travel through time and space and seems to know a lot about things that you never even believed existed. That is incredibly appealing.
Definitely.
Like the sense of adventure, and especially being as young as she is, to want to explore more, to see more, to do more, because her life is pretty mundane. She has jobs, she lives with her mom, she has a steady boyfriend, and that sense of adventure, and I think that's what captures everybody. And when she first walks into the TARDIS and you see this gorgeous, beautiful, big room inside of this tiny little, phone box, police box, like, I still had that sense of wonder, that sense of joy, and, like, intrigue, where I'm like, yes, I think this is why I like the show. Even though I do not like Rose, it is enough to make me want to continue with this series. And this is where I started.
Very true.
And now I'm a huge Doctor Who fan.
And that makes sense. That does make sense. Because seeing the growth of actually, like, truth be told, one of my favorite episodes is the next one. Okay. And it's because there's so many things that happen that are dovetailed to other things. But I loved seeing my introduction to Rose again. That was really great to me. And just to be able to pick her apart as far as a character.
Yes. Also
see her pluses and her minuses. Like seeing her in all her glory. It was
that is
really
true that she's not a perfect character. And I do see the appeal of that, and being young and wonder, and I can kind of relate to the people that do like Rose as their primary companion. She's the one you start with. She's the one that leads you into this adventure. But man, some of her decisions just seem very calculated and kind of cruel, in my opinion.
Rose does sound like a pretty special something word, I'm just saying, and
I agree.
Being honest.
And if anyone has any contradictory comments, please feel free to vocalize them to us. We will not attack you. We are not that kind of community. No. It's just from my point of view, I don't really appreciate her as much as some other people do.
Yeah, I'm just not a fan of her, and it's because of her character flaws, which, remember, this is the thing about Rose. The way they introduced her was, this is a person with character flaws that you will learn to love because they are part of that person. She will become better, and these things that you hate soon will wash away. And yes, that's the whole idea. We want to see her growth while also seeing the Doctor's growth. And that's why Rose was the way she was. But the thing is, after this Doctor goes away and we get a regeneration, and she's still around being that same Rose, that's where it's like, well, you know what? I don't know if I like her. I think that's where my disdain for Rose actually came from. And I wouldn't say disdain, just my dislike of Rose at moments actually came from after the first regeneration.
I agree with you. 100%.
She felt far more selfish. And then I look back and I'm like, oh, geez. There were signs the whole time, and that's where it's like I appreciate this rewatch.
And I think that led to a lot of future writers giving more thought into the companions, because the companions is the audience kind of gateway into this world. We project ourselves a lot onto the companions. We want to be that person who gets to go with the Doctor on all of these adventures. So I feel like this is a decent starting point. I don't necessarily love her, but I don't really hate her, but the writing gets so much better, and you can see even with the Doctor, who this Doctor is like, humans are stupid, I don't care. And when he talks about the first guy where Rose is looking for this guy Wilson to give him some money, and he was just like, Wilson's dead, let's move on. And I thought that was incredibly kind of callous for the Doctor, who is usually the supporter of humanity. Every life matters. We must protect everyone if we can.
Now, seeing that, yes, and that becomes more of a juxtaposition, especially for people that have watched Classic Who and then now see what I call now Retro Who and then to New Who. But seeing Retro Who from knowing the Classic Who, you're just kind of like, wow, that is a difference. But they were always looking to somehow tell us a story of the War Doctor. He was in how long of a war? I mean, that thing was going on for years upon years upon years, and here he was fighting everyone and finally has to push a button. This is the Doctor that came from that. So for him to be as tough or as strong as he was in that way, and to be as separated, it makes sense. He had to decompartmentalize. He had to compartmentalize to deal with everyone, to deal with all of that. I just committed genocide.
This is actually true. And we don't find out about this until way later down this Doctor Who history. But
beautiful, though.
Actually,
thinking about it now.
That is an excellent point that they are already mentioning that this war that the Doctor has come from and how he grows. And I think if we continue down this, we are going to see some dramatic changes in the Doctor from getting progressively younger to almost like infantile, like silliness with Matt Smith to incredibly kind of wizened and more intelligent and kind of hard to the world with Capaldi.
That's right.
And I feel like kind of finding some sort of balance with Jodie Whittaker of being incredibly stern but incredibly caring at the same time.
At the same time. She chose to bring it all together. Yes. She brings all of it together. And that's what Jodie Whittaker is doing right now, which is a great way as far as her being written and as far as her being portrayed. And when you see that whole picture, it does give you a better understanding and a far deeper appreciation for what Jodie Whittaker is doing right now.
Yeah, and the writing and like Chibnall and everyone else working on the project is so good. But for Mr. Moreau, I know like we're talking kind of a lot about Rose and kind of being very negative, but we do actually really love this show, and it does get better. Everyone has their favorites. There's always different companions, different characters, different doctors, and even different episodes.
That's right.
That bring in new characters. And one of the characters in this one was Clive, and I thought that was super interesting. He is wait, what's his name, Clive?
Was it? I think it was. But,
I think it was, but he is the guy that Rose seeks out. He has a website, and he has been following the Doctor and has been pulling all this information through time. I think he is super affable. I really like him. I am really sad that he doesn't come back because he gets shot, right?
Which sucks,
and that kind of massacre that happens.
That's also something interesting that we did in the Davies era, where sometimes you would meet a character, you'd bond with them, you connect with them, you like it, and they're dead just like that, and you're like, wait, what? And then later, it's something that we don't do in other parts of Doctor Who until much later. Where it's like, we start off doing that, and then it disappears, and then it happens again. But that whole time travel thing, when it comes to Doctor Who, and him spotting, like, oh, he's been around since this time.
And look at
my thing was, with the amount of money we were trying to put towards the show, and some of the stuff they did, they could have spent a little bit more on maybe a Photoshop program. I'm just saying.
No, but it's fine. But actually, what is really interesting, I heard about, like, this website is actually real.
Yes.
And it was put on by BBC for Doctor Who.
Well,
and I thought
there's a thing in television where you can't mention a website if you actually say, like, the literal website and .com at the end.
Oh, really?
It has to be real. I found that out later because
I
found that out due to Conan O'Brien. He had a whole sketch about it. He was something about sea manatees. Oh my God. And he had to actually make a website because of that. And it was the whole thing. So they make sure they stuck to it. But it's genius because that's a giant promotional tool that makes you it's immersive. You're in everything, like you're included in it, and it's like, oh, that feels so great. There's an actual website. So after I see the episode, I wonder if that website's real. Oh my God, it is. Oh, they actually have it filled with stuff. Like, that's so dope.
And that's what brings me into Clive and why I really like him, and like the image that I was just showing with the whole JFK thing too. Like Doctor Who is really good at Easter eggs. They're good at pulling like cool little things to throw at you.
Yes.
Because when Doctor Who originally aired, it was actually a day after the JFK assassinations that happened. So I thought it was kind of a cool little throwaway to have that photo and him be at the JFK assassination and be in that public. And I was like, I wonder, it has to be a throwback to when it first aired or something, like some kind of reference Easter egg. And it's like, that's what I really love about Doctor Who too, that a lot of the stuff they put in, it means something. It's a reference. It's gonna come back. It's gonna be part of it. And I really, really enjoy that about this show.
Oh yeah, I loved it. And there were just so many more pieces to this episode. Like you said, introducing us to characters that we saw just for a one and done. And then other characters that would continue on and then disappear and later become bigger. And one of them, of course, was Mickey. I mean,
surprisingly, Mickey does become a really big character, and kind of seeing this particular image of Mickey, we did not talk at all about the monster of this episode.
Exactly. What are the consciousness, the
Nestine consciousness?
There you go.
They're plastic.
The Nestine consciousness. Now,
creatures.
Remember, they are from Classic Who. I forgot which Doctor. It's the Doctor.
I want to say it's
the
third Doctor.
Is it the Karate Chop Doctor? The Action Doctor.
Okay.
But yeah. He there's the episode where I remember they were there before and he like these tentacles come out of a machine and wrap around him, and he like uses his sonic and blows up the machine and kills that thing, and then kills all of them, and they start to like melt. But it was like, oh geez, it is a classic monster. So coming back, out of all the monsters they could have chose, they brought the Nestine consciousness as the first one, which is cool. The third one, good job. And that was so cool, bringing it back, and we get a lot of that throughout the series. But yes, this monster.
It's cool, and I like that because the mannequins are quite creepy. I do like that kind of suspense, and then it kind of comes to...
I'm gonna make that a meme right now. That to this day, are you still afraid of the Nestine consciousness?
Yeah.
To this day!
Only because
to
of mannequins.
This day,
but for Mickey, it was also really horrifying that he gets eaten by this trash can, and he becomes a plastic version of himself.
Yes!
And I want to say bad on Rose, and I hate to keep bashing on her.
Thank you!
Did you not notice that he was like really shiny and acting incredibly weird?
Yeah. Hey, my boyfriend is now really shiny and weird to the touch. You had to notice it. And all of a sudden, he has Drake's hairline. There's something wrong. There's something wrong. All right? Good.
And the way he's talking, and they go through the drive together, they're eating a meal together, and she still doesn't notice. And even when the doctor is coming around with champagne, I feel like she is incredibly, she has like blinders on her to certain things, and that also is another reason why I don't necessarily like her. But my hope in this was that the doctor would open her eyes, expose her to new things, and she would grow to be a better, more well-rounded, conscientious person. I don't think that's what happened, but that's what I was hoping when I originally watched this episode. I was like, okay, we're gonna see her grow and develop because of the doctor and his knowledge and what he imposes on her, and how she's gonna broaden her viewpoint about everything.
Yes. And thank God, it's like at least someone was able to do it. Because later she does grow as a character, and still,
she does.
Just, it was at the last moment and it wasn't good enough. But the thing is, still she did, and it just took her all those adventures to make that happen.
But I mean, how unobservant do you have to be to not recognize that your significant other is a plastic alien monster trying to get information from you? Like. And kudos to the actor that's playing Mickey, because it is subtle, but it is enough to know that like he, in the little bit that we've seen him, in like the 40 minutes that we've known Mickey, we can tell that is no longer Mickey without even knowing that he was eaten by a trash can. It's like, yo, he's acting weird. He looks a little bit off. I don't think that's him. Well, I would be suspicious of it. And Rose is just like, I want to talk about me.
Oblivious.
These are my problems. And it shows how self-centered she is.
Yes, indeed. It's something where she doesn't pay attention to the world around her because it's too busy paying attention to the world that's right here. Yes. It was like, that's it. It's all about me. Forget everything else. The world does revolve around me. Like the doctor did agree to this on the episode. She also thinks the same thing about herself.
Yeah, but I do like that she gave a little bit of concern when the doctor ripped off Mickey's head and took it, and it was being sucked in and becoming like very raisiny inside of the TARDIS, and they got out, and she was like, what do I tell my boyfriend's mother? Which that gets retconned later because we find out he's an orphan.
Yeah, which is weird, right? Because it was like, okay, but I don't know, but that point when it comes to it and she says that, it's not really a concern for Mickey. It's a concern of my weird moment my awkward moment I'm going to have with his mom.
It's
a good not
point.
Really concerning
Mickey. I do kind of agree
with
that as well, where the concern isn't really for Mickey. I didn't really see that. Like, she did seem distraught, but now that you mention it, it's like, what am I going to tell his mother?
Yeah.
Not like, what am I going to do without him? Or what about his body? Or how are we going to have like, how do I say goodbye? Like, what happened to him?
None of that. See, and these responses that you're giving are the responses of a normal person, not a narcissistic kind of individual, which is exactly what we're dealing with Rose. Fight me. That's what I'm saying.
Please do, because I really do want to like her. Like, I love Doctor Who, and it always disappoints me a little bit when I don't like a particular character, especially a companion, because that's who we project ourselves on, and I don't want to ever be Rose, I think is the thing. I don't ever want to be like her. So, I don't know.
Well, maybe Rose doesn't look that often at her boyfriends. I mean, with all the changes in switching boyfriends, maybe that's the case.
I mean, I've only really seen her with Mickey, but she doesn't seem to care too much about him, doesn't care too much about her mother. So I just feel like maybe she's just disenchanted with life a little bit, which we can all kind of relate to.
But as far as being as self-centered as she is,
maybe not so much. I mean,
it's like, oh boy, it's just fix that about yourself. You're a horrible person on the outside and the inside if you happen to be that way.
That's true.
Fix it, and then you can be a great person. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, because even at the end of the episode where she does care a lot about her mother and does call, it's like, are you in the city? We need you to get out. I want you to go home. I want you to go home. And Jackie, of course, just clicks off the phone, which we will see represented in Rose at the end of the episode where it's like, hey, she's like, Rose, like, are you okay? Are you okay? And she just hangs up without saying, like, how are you? Are you okay?
No, she doesn't smirk like it's like, all right.
And then hangs up the phone on her own
but
mother.
I know why all of this happened, and I saved it.
And I'm not going to tell you. And, like, yes, maybe I don't know that mannequins were coming out and shooting people everywhere in this mall.
Nope.
And on this murderous rampage, but like even Jackie has to suffer some kind of trauma from this experience.
I'm thinking so. She was not having it with anyone. She was like, "Oh, I do not have time for that. I do not have time for that. I didn't have time." Everything that was going on, it was like, "Mickey, oh my God, blah blah." Oh, I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm your mother. I'm calling you. Did you know that you can do this for the police? Which you walked out of the police station and blah blah, and all this stuff can happen. I don't have time for that. It was always, I don't have time for that. If I can hang up, if I can separate from you in any way when you aren't really useful to me, that's what's happening. She is a narcissist.
I do.
She is. But
agree.
This is the thing. Remember, guys, I'm just saying the character is a narcissist because it's the way that the character was written. Billy Piper, I love you. But once again, it's the character that was written that way and was played and directed and shot that way. So she did a great job.
Yeah, and if that's what they were going for, given the dialogue, given everything that it is, like, this is what I imagined that they wanted to do, given it's a lower budget compared to where we are now, where it is movie quality episodes that we are getting. And I love that kind of compare and contrast of where we are now to where this kind of started from, this kind of retro Who that you call it.
Retro Who, right? It's just like, for when it comes to it, there's so many moving parts, and the thing is, when you think about just this one episode as a whole, and you see it as a whole picture, you have the introduction of not Billy Piper. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so we have Rose.
We have Rose, and Rose immediately you see what kind of person she is. They did a quick montage to let us know what was going on with her life.
And it's weird because I liked her in that montage, and it turns out she's a very kind of different person than I thought she was going to be.
Yeah.
But because I do like the Adventures of the Doctor, I do love the TARDIS. It is a very interesting introduction to the show, and I think because so many people were already fans and everyone said, like, I can't believe that Doctor Who is back, that made me want to power through some of these episodes, and it got me through the first season, even though it's not my favorite, and I wanted to fall off a couple times because I knew the fandom was so strong. I'm glad I stuck with it.
This is the thing. Like, when it comes to like jokes, I dig the setup far more than I dig the punchline, because the setup is masterfully set. That punchline is going to be beautiful. I feel that some people are more punchline individuals, and that's why this first season is set up for me. Face of Bow,
that's true.
all these other things that we get, like just need.
The next episode is going to be very fun. It's going to bring in a lot of stuff.
But see, once again, it's the setup that I enjoy.
They're playing
that's
the long
why
game.
I do like this season. And other people may be like, oh, I don't. And I'm like, and I understand. And that's perfectly fine. Yes, as it gets older, it did get better. We got better writers. We got to know exactly what we were doing with our fans and how we wanted to deliver a message to them. So that was cool. But also with this episode, what did you think of, well, honestly, what would your decision be? At the end, what would your decision be?
I would obviously have gone with the Doctor and everything else. Like, of course, like I am a person that has a sense of adventure. I want to do so much with so little time that I have. I always feel like I'm rushing around. And even if I had whatever relationship Rose had with Mickey, I would be kind enough to ask to be like, I would like him to come along.
Yeah, well, true.
But, I mean, if he said no, I can't bash Rose, I would do exactly the same thing.
So automatically,
in her situation, I would be a horrible, self-centered person. After talking for 45 minutes about Rose, shame.
Yes, after
shame
all
none
this
on
you were
me.
just talking, you were like, Rose, I got smoke for you. This is blah blah. I'm spilling tea. I don't like you. Everything about you is wrong. What would I do? Exactly what she did. That's exactly what you did at the end. All this happened to say you would do that. That's just as bad as my voting and saying, oh no, I hate rated the episode 3 out of 5, 3.5.
If you were Rose, what would you do? What would you do if you were Rose?
If I was Rose, I would have been like, okay, once he said time machine, yes. And then I would have been like,
Mickey too.
Yes, because I can come back to the same exact moment when I left. Years later, it doesn't matter. And be like, all right, now let's continue on with our lives. And he'll be like, oh, blah,
Look at
blah,
that
I'm
Eccleston
an
face.
idiot.
He was like, I know things.
I know, yeah,
but
dude.
also, this is kind of creepy and it reminds me of the guy with the van that's like coming.
Yes,
children
that's what
that
I was
have
going to
free
say.
candy.
That's exactly it. He was like, I don't like to be alone and there's candy involved. And
Yeah.
she's like, okay. And you're like, well, all right. I can see. I'm shocked that she did not.
Stranger danger
Yes, I'm
is
shocked
real
that-
sometimes.
I'm shocked
This is
that
a
she wasn't
fantasy
kidnapped.
sci-fi show, which makes it okay. But in real world, please don't go with strange men into their
Yes,
box.
don't. We,
If
yes,
it's like,
yes.
come into my box, do not go.
Do not.
Do not go. Call the police. Get an accurate description.
Yes,
Send
yes.
that out
Well,
there.
Not even
please.
accurate description. You're like, oh, wow, interesting. Click. And then, like, you took a picture and send it to 911. I don't know. Just make sure that other people know that he is around because he's possibly going to kidnap you and you won't come back.
But yeah, for those in the chat, what would you rate this episode if you rewatch it or if you watched it the first time? How did you feel about this episode? And for me, it was a decent start. It wasn't, if the fandom wasn't behind and I didn't know people that were strong Doctor Who fans, I don't know if I would have continued watching after this particular episode.
Very true.
I'm glad I did. It had enough going back. I appreciate it a little bit more for what it was. So I would give this a solid 3. It's not a great start, but it is a decent start for me.
Okay. Honestly, being honest, before, now once again, we are looking for your scores. So,
Out of 5.
guys, out of 5, let us know exactly what you give this first episode of Doctor Who of 2005. Now, for me, when it comes to this episode, honestly, yes. Nostalgia-wise, oh, great. It gets great points.
Yeah.
But reviewing the actual episode, it was very lackluster. It was cheesy and campy at moments. And I feel that as far as the characters, there weren't any that I wanted to truly connect with. I didn't want to connect with Mickey. He felt just empty and a person that was told to do whatever he was literally an automaton. Already. And of course we have Rose, who was empty as a person. She had no redeeming qualities and there was nothing about her that made me say I want to connect with you. Same thing as her mother, because once again the apple does not fall too far from the tree.
Yes.
The one person that I did connect with and I wish I saw more of was the guy who got killed.
Clive. And
Clive.
I really liked, and I wanted to know more about him, and I was actually devastated that he was killed because we see that he has a wife
Yep.
and he has children.
Yep.
And he seems to be like a very good provider despite his hobby of researching all the doctor stuff.
right.
He has his shed and
That's
he
right.
was I'm gonna miss him. And I
Yeah.
feel like we should have a shout out to all the people we lose in Doctor Who
Oh
because
my
these early
God.
ones there are going to be a lot
Oh
more
my
than
God,
as
we
proceed.
may have an in memoriam or
Yeah.
just like RIP moment forever, and we'll put a picture up. Okay,
Yeah.
we can start doing that from now
I
on
love
because that would
Clive.
be interesting.
And I think we can like pay our respects of how good of a guest star they were on
Yes,
Doctor Who.
because
and
definitely
for Clive,
was.
I give Clive a 5.
Oh, Clive gets a 5.
Yes.
Now, because of that and all the other things that I did mention, giving this episode an actual vote,
Yes.
I'm going to make sure that I try to do it from a way of an actual, like, I reviewed an episode, blah, blah. So this episode, honestly, gets a 2.
And that is low,
Gets a
but
2.
because of your reasoning, I respect that
And
and I
that's the
understand
thing.
where you're
and
coming from.
I'm coming from that where it's like, honestly, reviewing this, it was bad. Because the next episode, guys, here's a hint, it gets a 5 for me, the next episode. So it sucks that this is
that the
the
last
first
human?
episode. Well, the last human's on it. But it's,
Okay. I like her.
the
She's
end
one
of,
of my-
end of Earth and blah, blah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah, well, she would be the monster for that, kind of. Yeah. So, yeah, definitely. That's
Mr.
next week.
Moreau,
But-
Rose gets the 5 points for her look. She is absolutely
Ooh.
gorgeous. I do love Billie Piper. 0 for personality. Agree with you on that. And Ryan Earl Thomas gives it a 5 out of 5. Larry Newbell 3.5 because Elle is getting amped up on Rose.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love
I
it.
was, and I'm such a hypocrite.
She
Man,
was,
I
she
wish this
was.
wasn't live so I can edit that out so I don't look as bad as I did.
Nope. It's there forever. Now people know.
I am Rose.
That's it.
I think maybe that's
it.
why I don't like her. Is I
That's
see
only
too many
much of me,
qualities
too
of
much of
myself
me.
and her.
Oh, jeez. Oh,
it's getting
boy.
a little too real, Rose.
Sorry, Rose. Just can't anymore. I would have dished him too immediately.
Fine, Mickey.
man.
Sorry, you were a crying lump of uselessness.
But it does better for him later, which we do
It
see.
does. And I do like Mickey.
He gets a better companion later for himself.
And it's kind of interesting to kind of pair it where it's like I kind of feel like I'm blanking on his name. Who's our favorite companion right now? Graham.
Graham.
He's Graham, who was kind of scared and didn't have that motivation to be more and had grown in the series of 10 episodes. Okay. Mickey takes a lot longer, but I do feel like he grows significantly from this start, and we will see what happens to him.
Yeah, that's true. We're not going to hit you with spoilers on it. Not yet.
Not yet.
Spoilers, sweetie.
We will always
You'll love
spoilers.
what that means later. But no, honestly, that is very true, and that's something that we have to make sure that we do pay attention to that's why I'm trying to keep that in mind when reviewing. I know what happens, but I'm trying to
it's hard to separate yourself.
Yes. So that's why being honest and looking at just the episode itself, it gets me too.
Yeah, and if you tune in next week, we will be doing the New Year's episode with Jodie Whittaker. So we're kind of bouncing back and forth between old and new and old and new right now. But yeah, I hope you can join us, and I want to wish you guys a happy New Year.
Definitely happy New Year
from
us.
You.
Yeah, is this the last stream for 2018 for
me,
hashtag?
For me, I know it is. Is this the last one for hashtag?
I think so.
Well, we want to wish you a happy New Year. Please be safe.
Yeah, definitely, guys.
Have fun, but always be safe. It's not worth coming into the new year, hungover or dead or
we don't want new year dead me. That's not good.
We don't do
that's
that.
Not good.
Don't
no one
do
wants. Don't.
We are not time travelers. We cannot reverse certain fixed points in history. So please keep that in mind. And
that's right. If you're dead, you're dead on your own. Yeah. So with that being the case, we want to say.
And if you like the moral of our story, please like, share, and subscribe.
Just keep up to date with everything trending in geek pop culture. Goodbye.
Happy New Year's.